All right, let's dive into the fascinating and, yeah, often pretty controversial ideas of Rudolf Steiner. He looked at the modern world and basically said that science had lost its soul. So he came up with this radical alternative, a spiritual science, to explain what it really means to be human. And believe me, his ideas have influenced everything from the way we teach our kids to the way we farm our food.
So, Steiner's entire philosophy really kicks off with this bombshell of a critique. It's 1919, and he's looking at psychology, and he just says, you know what? In its rush to be scientific, this whole field has completely lost the plot. He saw it as just a bunch of empty words that could describe the mechanics of a mind, but they totally missed the actual essence of the human soul.
So that begs the question, right? What exactly did Steiner think was missing? What was this true content that science was just completely ignoring? Answering that question is the key to his entire worldview, and it's what we're about to unpack right now. And Steiner's answer, well, it begins with his foundational model of the human being. See, he didn't see us as one single neat and tidy thing. Nope. He saw us as this dynamic dance between three totally distinct activities: our thinking, our feeling, and our willing. And for him, this wasn't just some psychological theory. It was a biological and a spiritual reality. He called it the threefold human organism. And you gotta get this part, because it is the absolute core of his teaching. The whole idea is that these three soul activities, thinking, feeling, and willing, they're not just abstract concepts floating around. Instead, each one is anchored in and expressed through a specific system in our own bodies. And here is exactly how he mapped it all out. Our thinking, he said, is physically based in our nerve sense system, which is centered in our head. Our feeling, that's rooted in our rhythmic system, our breathing, our circulation, all centered in the chest. And our will, our ability to get up and do things, that's grounded in our metabolic limb system. The really crucial takeaway here is that for Steiner, the body is the physical instrument that the soul plays. But these systems aren't just in their own separate boxes. Not at all. They're in this constant dynamic dance. And this quote just brilliantly captures the relationship between feeling and willing. I mean, think about it. A really strong feeling often pushes you to act. That's your feeling becoming will. And on the flip side, when you stop yourself from doing something, when you repress your will, that energy just sits in you as a feeling. They're really just two sides of the very same coin. Now, this whole idea builds into something even more incredible: the belief that the very shape of our body, our head, our chest, and our limbs, is actually a kind of spiritual map, and it reveals the true nature of our consciousness. So take a look at this. This is a sketch from one of Steiner's actual lectures. He saw the head as a perfect sphere, a complete, finished, self-contained form. But the chest, he drew that as a crescent, like it's a broken piece of a much larger, invisible sphere. For him, this meant the chest is open to the spiritual world in a way the head just isn't. It's part body, part soul. This whole polarity thing becomes super clear when you compare the head and the limbs. The head is the developed body, right? It's a finished product. But spiritually, Steiner says the spirit inside it is actually sleeping. The limbs, on the other hand, are an unformed body. They're always moving, always becoming something. But in that will-driven movement, the soul and spirit are fully awake. It's a total flip of how we normally think about consciousness. And he had this brilliant analogy to explain that relationship. He said our head can stay still and be reflective and awake in its thinking because it's basically being carried around by the body, like a passenger in a carriage. The body does the moving, the willing, so the head is freed up. Steiner actually argued that if our head had to do the walking, it would literally fall asleep. So if this is the map of a human being, how do you actually use it? Well, for Steiner, the most important application was in the art of education. This is what became the foundation for what we now know as Waldorf schools. Okay, this is such a crucial concept for his teaching method. He said we are not just awake during the day. Only our thinking is truly in a waking state. Our feeling life, he said, is much more like a dream. It's vivid, but we're not fully conscious of it. And our will? Our will is in a state of deep sleep. I mean, you decide to pick up a pen and it just happens, but the actual process is completely unconscious to us. So, if that's true, then a teacher's job isn't just to pour a bunch of information into the waking, thinking head of a child. That's actually the smallest part of the job. The real work, the real art of it, is to engage the dreaming and the sleeping parts of the child, their feeling and their will, in order to awaken their spirit. And that leads to a very, very specific educational path. You don't start with the head, you start with the will. You get the child moving, creating, making art. This develops their metabolic limb system and their rhythmic system. And according to Steiner, if you do that correctly, the head, the capacity for clear, abstract thinking, it just awakens naturally as a result.
But Steiner's vision, it extends so much further than just the individual. The same threefold model builds out into a truly cosmic philosophy, one that connects our human nature to the entire animal kingdom and even to the destiny of the Earth itself.
Okay, get ready, because this is a wild idea. Steiner proposed that in a super early stage of evolution, human nature actually held the potential for all the animal forms. And to become truly human, we had to sort of cast out these specialized forms. So, in a way, the entire animal kingdom is an externalized part of our own original unified nature. And he believed this process is still happening inside us, right now, but on a spiritual level. Our head, he says, is constantly trying to form us into animal shapes. A wolf, a lion, a lamb, but our torso and our limbs, our feeling and willing systems, are constantly fighting back, overcoming those animal tendencies and reshaping us into a human. And the invisible result of this constant inner battle, that, Steiner believed, is our consciousness. Our thoughts are the spiritual echo of this whole process. And this brings us to what he saw as humanity's purpose for the planet. Steiner claimed that without us, the Earth would have petrified and finished its development long ago. He uses this really striking analogy of yeast and dough. The forces that are released when we die and our bodies return to the Earth, that is the leaven that allows the planet's own evolution to keep going. And finally, we get to the ultimate source of our consciousness. According to Steiner, your thoughts are not created by your brain. He saw the brain more like a mirror. And what does it reflect? A picture of your spiritual existence before you were ever born. In this view, your entire conscious life is a reflection of a life you lived in the spiritual world. And this, of course, leaves us with one final massive question. If our thinking is just a reflection of a life before this one, and our will is planting the seeds for a life to come, then what is the grand purpose of this physical life we are living right now, the one in between? Pondering that question, well, that takes you right to the very heart of Rudolf Steiner's spiritual science.